This is Advanced Math, Unit 1, Lesson 3. That's Advanced Math 1.3 notes. Today we're going to continue with our factoring, focusing on 4-term polynomials and cube factoring. Okay, we're going to factor completely. Number 1, xy cubed minus 2xy squared plus 5xy minus 10x. All right, this polynomial does have 4 terms, so I'm going to put a little note here. When you have 4 terms, first thing you should always look for is a GCF. After that, it's going to be a factor by grouping. And you have done that in your last year's math class. Factor by grouping. Okay, now typically in your last year's math class, your factor by grouping was always a 2-2, meaning you do your first 2 chunks, your first 2 terms, your last 2 terms, and you have 2 chunks in each section. Today we're going to talk about 3-1 factor by grouping as well as 1-3. So 3 terms in the first, 1 in the last, or 1 term in the first and 3 in the last. This here is the new part. The 2-2 is review. So let's start with the review one. First, let's check for a GCF. And they all have an x in common, and that is it. So it leaves me with y cubed minus 2y squared plus 5y minus 10. Now, if you didn't do the GCF first and you went straight to factor by grouping, you could take the GCF out at the end. Okay, so here's my first group, my second group. I don't like to put parentheses because sometimes that plus sign might be a minus, and then that kind of changes things. Okay, so x, and actually I'm going to hold off on that x just for now. I'll put it back in a second. All right, first group, I'm going to take out a y squared, leaving behind a y minus 2, plus here I'm going to take out a 5, leaving behind a y minus 2. Now out in the bigger piece, there's still that x kind of hanging out there. Just don't forget that he's out there. All right, next piece I'm going to do is my GCF of y minus 2. They have that in common, leaving behind y squared plus 5, and that x is still out there. And then I check, can I still factor? And I cannot. This is my final answer. Okay, let's try another one. Number 2, AC minus 5B minus 5C plus AB. Now this is another 2 by 2. I'll show you when we reach the 3-1 and the 1-3 how to recognize them. Okay, so for now I'm going to see if factoring as it is, if I have to rearrange. First off, there are no like terms, so I'm going to try to factor it as it is. GCF here is, oh, is there a GCF there, or do I have to do some rearranging? Yeah, it looks like we're going to have to do some rearranging because can you see that there's no GCF here? So when you rearrange, there are multiple ways. Like one person might do it one way, another person might do it another way, but in the end, we should all end up with the same answer. So I'm going to put AC minus 5C and then negative 5B plus AB. Now somebody else may pick a different way to regroup it. This is how I'm going to do it. Okay, GCF here is a C, leaving behind an A minus 5. Now here I have to take out a negative, and that leaves behind, let's see, oh, not just a negative, sorry, a negative B, leaving behind a 5 minus A. And it's 5 minus A because you took out the negative. Remember, you pull a negative out, it changes both signs. So that 5B is now a positive, and that positive AB is now a negative because you took a negative out. If you don't believe me, try to distribute that negative B back in, and you should end up back up here what we started with. Okay, now you can see that this is a little, these two things are not the same. choices. You could have flipped the guys up here so that the positive came first, and that may have helped. I'm going to continue, like, what happens if you got this far and you're not sure what to do. These are called opposites. Now, when you're working with an opposite, you can take out a negative, and when you take out that negative, here's what happened. The C is going to stay, the A minus 5 is going to stay. You're taking out a negative 1, which makes that minus a positive B, and remember opposites, you learned this last year, they flip around. The opposite of 5 is negative 5, and the opposite of negative A is positive A. All right, when you take out a negative, it's the opposite, it flips them around on the negative sign only. Okay, so now I can take out an A minus 5, leaving behind a C plus B. Now that is not the only way. Again, it would have been easier if I had written this right here as AB first and then minus 5B second, but didn't see that right away. If you did, fine, do it. It's up to you, but in the end, we should end up in the same place. Okay, number 3, x squared minus 2xy plus y squared minus 16a squared. Okay, again, we have 4 terms, factor by grouping. Now, this is where we're going to change away from the 2, 2. We're going to look at a 3, 1 or 1, 3. And this is how you check if it's a 3, 1 or a 1, 3. Cover the first term or cover the last term. I'm going to cover the first term right now. Ignore that negative because we can factor that out. Does that look like a trinomial? Guess and check. It does not, because that has an a squared. There's no a over here anywhere else. It has an xy. That's a y squared. That is not a trinomial. Guess and check. I'm going to cover the last term. Does that look like it could be a trinomial? Guess and check. It is. There's an x squared, there's a y squared, there's an xy in the middle. And not only does it have to be a trinomial, guess and check, it has to be a perfect square trinomial. I'll show you what that means. Okay, so this is a 3, 1, meaning there's 3 terms in the first, 1 term in the last. I'm going to put a little note here, 3, 1. I'm going to double bubble. X times x is x squared. It's going to be minus and minus, y and y. Do a quick check, check, and you get negative 2xy in the middle. And I write it as a quantity of x minus y squared. That's a perfect square trinomial. So if it's a 3, 1 or 1, 3, your trinomial that you're going to factor either the first 3 terms or the last 3 terms should come out to be a perfect square trinomial, meaning you can write it as quantity squared. And now you can see I have a difference of 2 squares. 2 terms. This is my first term, this is my second term. There's a minus sign, and they are both perfect squares. Now you can do substitution if you like. I'm going to show you without. When we get back into class, you can ask me if you'd like to see it with substitution. I can show you that way as well. Okay, difference of 2 squares. I'm going to put big exaggerated parentheses because I'm going to have little ones. Okay, first term plus the second term, first term minus the second term. Okay. The square root of x minus y squared is just x minus y. The square root of 16a squared is 4a. Do you see how that worked? X minus y times x minus y is x minus y quantity squared. 4a times negative 4a is negative 16a squared. And if you did all your double distribution or inside-outside, the middle terms cancel out. So, only thing I have to do is distribute if there's anything to distribute, because I cannot leave nested parentheses. So there's nothing to distribute in either one of these. So I'm just going to drop the inner parentheses and see if there are any like terms, which there are not. So this is the final answer. And yes, you will have some of these on the test. All right, I am going to move on. Number 4, x squared minus y squared minus 2z y minus z squared. I cross my z's so they don't look like 2's. All right, 4 terms. I'm going to check a 3, 1 or a 1, 3. Now I'm covering that one. It looks like it's a trinomial, but it's not. Guess and check, because there's a z here and nowhere in the middle, and there's no squared at the end. It just doesn't look right, so I'm going to cover the first one. y squared, zy, zy is in the middle, so it looks like yes, indeed it is a guess and check. Now this is going to be a 1-3 guess and check, not guess and check, factor by grouping. It's going to be a 1-3 factor by grouping, but it's tricky because of this negative sign right here. You have to first factor that out, and I did mention that earlier. Take out the negative because we don't want to factor this. I'm going to cover the x squared. You don't want to factor this with that leading coefficient being negative. So factor it out. Positive y squared, positive 2zy, positive z squared. X squared's going to stay, minus, I'm going to factor double bubble. These two things should come out to be exactly the same because it's a perfect square trinomial. Y times y, z times z. The two signs are the same. The neighbor tells me they are both positive. Y times y is y squared. Z times z is z squared. If you do your inside-outside, you do indeed get 2zy or 2yz in the middle. So x squared minus the quantity of y plus z squared. Not done, but we've at least gotten down to dots where I am now able to factor a difference of two squares. So I'm going to again do my big exaggerated parentheses. First term plus second term, first term minus the second term, and the square root of x squared is x into x, and if you want to put minus and then plus, that's perfectly fine. The square root of this piece here is going to be y plus z, y plus z. So there we have it. X times x is x squared. Y plus z times y plus z is the quantity of y plus z squared. And if you did all your double distribution, your middle terms will indeed cancel out. And only thing I have to do is clean up. I can't leave the nested parentheses. There's nothing to distribute here other than a positive sign, so I'm going to write it like this. Oh, be careful on this one. There is something to distribute. So if you forgot to put your little nested parentheses on the first step up here, you'd get it wrong. Minus y minus z. Be careful, because a lot of kids will just not even write the little parentheses. They're like, oh, I'm good, and they forget to distribute that negative. Be careful. And since there are no like terms, that there is our answer. All right, number 5, 8x cubed plus 27, and this is cube factoring. All right, this is the SOAP. If that helps, you can put SOAP here. Same, opposite, always positive. You learned that last year as well. I am going to quickly write the formula down for you, just in case you have forgotten. Okay, it is, if you have a cubed plus b cubed, it will equal the quantity of a plus b times the quantity of a squared minus ab plus b squared. We will use this throughout this class, so if there's something you feel like, oh, I'm not going to remember, then you want to make sure you study and study, because it is something we're going to use a lot. All right, so positive, same, it's positive. The opposite of a positive is negative, and the last one's always positive. So if this had been a minus, it would be minus plus plus, all right? Okay, so what I would suggest you do here is first figure out what your a and your b are. Do that by breaking it down and writing it like this. What to the third is 8x cubed? 2x. What to the third is 27? 3. That there is your a, and that there is your b. Nowhere are we going to use the cube power. Notice in here, nowhere did we use a cube power. We just used the bases of a and b. All right, so it factors a is 2x. Same sign as plus, b is 3, close parentheses. Be careful, a lot of kids will do this. For the a squared, they'll do 2x squared. That is wrong, because I have to square the 2 as well. It's 2x times 2x, so that's 4x squared. Opposite, the product of 2x and 3 is 6x. Always positive, b squared is 9, and that there is your final answer. This last piece should not be factorable if this original piece was taken care of with GCFs. Okay, if you did all your GCFing in the beginning, that last trinomial should not be factorable. Okay, number 6. 125 a to the 6th minus b to the 3rd. Be careful, we're using a b and a 6. That might be a little confusing if you're sloppy, so be careful. I need to be careful as well. All right, so I said break it down to this. What to the 3rd is 125, that's 5. A to what power? What would this power have to be so when I raise it to the 3 I get a 6? Remember, a power to a power you multiply. So 3 times this would be a2 and this would be a b. 5a squared raised to the 3rd power is 125 a to the 6th. B to the 3rd is b cubed. Okay, this is your a, this is your b, and same opposite, always positive. So 5a squared minus, that's the same, b, a squared, I square the 5 and the a squared, that's 25a to the 4th. Opposite would be positive, and then 5a times b is simply 5ab, always positive, b squared is just going to be b squared. And that there is your final answer. All right, that is it for this lesson. Make sure you have questions ready for me in our next class session.